Today on the PIO podcast, I am pleased to introduce Commander and PIO Michael Shaw of the Michigan State Police. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So, Mike, let's talk about some information here. Your background, first of all, and then how did you become the supervisor in charge of public information? Mike, I just lost your audio.
How about now?
There you go. There you
All
go.
right.
Yep.
Okay. I don't know what happened there, but all right. All right. So I'm coming into my 30th year next week in MSP. I've been probably a lifelong goal of mine. My grandfather was a state trooper, so he kind of brainwashed me or, headed me in this direction into law enforcement. When I graduated from high school, the department hires at 21, so I went to the military. Ended up spending 11 years in the army as a military police officer, and then finally MSP was hiring, made that transition, and got an opportunity to do a lot of different things here in MSP, from trooper to desk sergeant to narcotics. After my narcotics, I got promoted to lieutenant at a post. And from that point, we were kind of changing our way that we were dealing with the media. The previous governor's administration didn't like us talking with the media very much. We weren't allowed to really do that. So there wasn't really a PIO, so to speak. The new colonel came on board and said, "How would you like to be our public information officer?" And I responded with every trooper's response of, "I would not." And she said, "Great, you start Monday." And that's kind of how I went into that transition. That was back in 2013, and I've been a public information officer in some capacity ever since.
Wow. So you've been at this quite a while then. So you've seen a lot of changes over the years. I mean, 2013. Wow, that's a lot of time there, and I'm sure a lot of change in the way you guys handle things and how you do things.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we went from the old fax machine, sending out a back then what a press release, right? And now here we are using social media to send out news releases, and no more email chains and all that kind of stuff. So technology has definitely made a lot of changes in the PIO world and the way that we communicate, not almost directly to the public now. It's almost like the media is a gateway to the public. But if they decide not to cover our stories, we can do it ourselves.
Mike, let's talk about demographics for the Michigan State Police. How many sworn and how many civilian professional staff does the state police have?
Yeah. So we have about 1870 right now sworn. We're going through a pretty big transition. We have a lot of large recruit schools that are in retirement time, including mine. So, we're kind of looking at some, picking up our department's a lot younger now than it was before. And we run about 1,300 civilian personnel too. We have emergency management under MSP. We have our forensic laboratories. We have different parts there too. And even in my division, the communication and outreach division, my director of that division is a civilian. So we're kind of
Okay,
mixed in between.
a lot of crossover then in some cases, depending on the
Absolutely.
department. So, Mike, you were instrumental in bringing full-time PIOs to every district within the state police. Obviously, there was a need for this, but how did you sell this to executive staff? Because I'm sure they don't want to lose that control over the PIOs. How did you say, "Hey, we need to get one to every district"?
So it was an interesting topic that we first started. It was actually part of my staff and command at Michigan State University. It was they never had a PIO before go through that course, so a lot of it was based on operational support, law enforcement stuff. And I decided that my plan was going to be making it bigger. We only had two PIOs across the entire state at the time. It was myself covering the Metro Detroit area, and then we had another PIO up in the Flint Saginaw area covering those. And the reason that those areas were picked were those are the four most violent cities in the state. So they wanted to put a PIO in each one of those. Well, I was looking to expand that. I was saying, we need to one, I can't run back and forth all the time to different areas of the state. Two, it's an entirely different audience, and that's the trick bag of a state agency is my audience here in Metro Detroit is a lot different than the Eighth District PIO up in the Upper Peninsula. They want to hear different things, or they want to have different type of conversations. So my thought was, is I really wanted to get PIOs in each part of the state so they could talk to their community and talk about, things that were important to them. Now, I can tell you, like you said, that the first shot at it was, well, we're taking people off the road and, those kind of conversations. But we did have a lieutenant colonel at the time who said, you know what, that's a great idea, but we're going to slow roll this out. And we did. Eventually, we started getting PIOs in every district. And then we made the big move where we wanted to take them out of the district themselves and put them into a division to where we could have the same type of message because, every district commander, you have different district commanders that if they have a Facebook page, they're now an expert in social media, right? And we all know that that's not really how it kind of works. So we really wanted to put that to where we put everything in one central division. And that's where we are today with the communications outreach division. Like I said, my director is a civilian. I'm in charge of the enlisted PIOs in the PIO section. We also have external communications that are all civilians, and then internal communications, which is all civilians as well.
All right, so let's talk about how your office is staffed then. You just named a lot of personnel. How is that broken down? Give me some idea and kind of what are those each one of those sections do?
So for us, so we have the division head that she's kind of with the director, right? She kind of staffs the director. She does all that stuff. She kind of oversees all the communications that go out from the department and also all the internal communications inside of the department. Then we have three managers. Where I'm a commander because I'm enlisted, but the other two are managers. We're all the same rank, so to speak, just civilian wise. So external communications handles everything that kind of comes in through the Lansing area, and then any requests that may need a PIO, they send it out to us. They write some press release. We also have Office of Highway Safety Planning, so they help them with those. So they're kind of the inner workings and headquarters itself. Our internal communications is the same, head by a commander, a 15 level lieutenant, but a civilian, and they handle all of our newsletters, our internal releases to the department. We do have it's kind of gone away for a little bit, but we do have our own podcast that we used to do. We also have, a mobile app that we have that people can get on their phones and learn about different things. So they kind of handle that. And then my responsibility is the enlisted PIOs for every district. So not only do I serve the commander of that, I'm the actual PIO in the Metro Detroit area. And then each PIO is actually stationed in their own individual district, either at the headquarters or one of the posts up there. So it's a great combination. I'm a huge fan of having both enlisted and civilian in this or part because I'm a cop. It's not going to change no matter what. And sometimes, my thought process might be a little different than external communications with a civilian thought process. Mike, we probably don't want to go down that road, and things like that. It works out very good for us.
Right? I'm sure it does because it's always good to have that second voice, that external that voice that's not the because let's face it, I'm retired law enforcement. We think differently
Different.
than civilian population does. We just do, and it's part of the way we're trained, and it's part of the way we deal with things in life. And if I went into a restaurant just like you did and you sat down, you'd be facing the door, and any other civilian wouldn't even think about it. But yet, this is cop think. It's just the way it is.
And it's funny if I go out with the civilian parts of the section, they always save me that seat facing the door because they know that the battle's going to be on to go there, so they know too. So it's a learning way for both ways, right? Not having law enforcement experience, I get to kind of throw that at them, and then they kind of is like, well, oh, that may sound good to you in the law enforcement side of the house, but the civilian audience isn't going to take that.
Exactly. Mike, when you installed the new positions, you also made sure they had their own district accounts, their X accounts, and they manage those. Why was that important for for them to have that as well?
So when I first started, like I said, I didn't know, and my career was not going in this direction, right? I figured eventually I'd be a post commander, maybe a district commander, kind of work my way through the law enforcement part of it. I had no idea of doing this, and I always heard from a lot of people, the chief's got to be the one that talks and things like that. But in a state agency, that's kind of tough, right? You can't pull out the kernel every time that, we have a traffic crash. So my thought process is that I wanted to get the PIO embedded in that district, and I wanted them to have a voice. And I think it's interesting where you see like our main Facebook account, we only have one Facebook account, and that's run by our external communications folks. But I wanted the PIOs to have a voice. And my Twitter account or X account is far different than somebody in the seventh district. So seventh district, kind of like the northern part of Michigan. The audience up there just wants to know how many people are getting arrested and who's going to jail and how we're fighting crime and things like that. The Metro Detroit market isn't that way, right? They're concerned about other stuff, community service, that kind of stuff. So I wanted each PIO to be able to start and have their own voice and kind of within reason, naturally, we do run different things, runs each other. Maybe that's pushing the line a little bit, but that's one thing I thought was important. And then the media now, mind you, this is before all the transition and the politics and all that kind of silliness that's kind of going on now. The media really loved it too because we were hitting, my goal was 15 minutes after a critical incident, our first holding statement's going out. And it was going out over that X account. And the reporters knew that it was coming out from there. They knew they could grab it real quick by the PIOs scrambling to get to wherever that spot was. So I felt it was important to have that instantaneous conversation. It's still working for us, knock on wood, and I hope it continues because unfortunately, there is no replacement for X. I think I just came back from the IECP PIO mid-year conference, and one of the presenters said, Twitter was awesome. It gave us everything that we ever wanted, and now that it's not quite the same, there is no replacement. So I'm hoping it continues to work for us.
Right, right. Mike, does the external communications section, do they manage the agency website?
They do. So they handle. So we have Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. We can't have TikTok because the state bans it. We don't have any Snapchat or anything like that. I feel like I'm missing one. Our
What about a YouTube account?
mobile application, our YouTube account, all that stuff, all from input from the PIOs. So if the PIO has an event taking place in their area, they can reach out to external communications and they'll put something on Facebook as a community event. If we get a good photo that um, we had a lot of Northern Lights this year. We were getting a lot of
Yeah.
photos from that we would send over to external communications and they will put it on our Instagram. They also have a main X account as well that's not run by the PIOs, that comes out of external communications. And then we kind of supplement that role with our own X account.
Okay. So, Mike, you've been in communications for a bit now, to say the least, and you just came from the IACP communications PIO section meeting, which is a great conference to go to. What challenges do you see impacting communication professionals in the next 5 years as PIOs?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. I think I kind of mentioned there's really no good social media platform right now. I mean, things are kind of working in our favor for us as a department. For others, it's not. So there's really not a go-to right now. So that's a bit of a concern to get that message out because we're constantly combating rumors, and I think that's the toughest part. There are so many scanner pages, neighborhood journalists,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff that goes with it. And you're constantly fighting these rumors, and it's going to be hard to do that kind of battle without having that instantaneous comeback, so to speak. So I think that's another tough part. The deep fakes are an interesting concept as far as that goes, seeing that out there, constantly battling that kind of stuff and making sure that we've had the colonel has been spoofed a couple of times, so far. So a little bit of that, and then I just think keeping up with the technology. I mean, every day it's something different, and I know I'm long in the tooth, as they say, and I'm kind of at the end of the road. But there's so much stuff coming out now that just to keep up with as a public information officer is kind of crazy. So I think
Oh
those are
yeah.
the things that we're really going to have to really keep concentrating on, and going to conferences and learning from each other, because everything that happens to us, happens to somebody else. And when it happens to somebody else, it's coming our way too. So I think that's the going to be the toughest part, is kind of dealing with all that stuff as it goes along.
Yeah, I agree with you. Mike, what are your thoughts on using any artificial intelligence, and have you utilized any of it in any of the work that you do?
So we're looking at that as a department as a whole in different ways. We're looking at AI as far as report writing systems, and different ways to kind of speed up the process as far as getting report writing done. I know, if you haven't been in policing, the TV version of our job is very cool, but the majority of it is report writing. So getting an AI application out there for that is good. We fall under the state of Michigan. So the state of Michigan has its own policies as far as AI goes and things like that. So trying to keep up with them. I have used Chat GPT. I haven't used it as a whole to put something out, but maybe if I mean, you can only talk about seatbelt use so many times before you just run out of those words. So maybe I'll throw in there, hey, give me five, X posts for seatbelt use, or why you should wear a seatbelt. And kind of look at that and says, oh, that's some good word. And then I'll put into Mike Shaw, right? Then I'll put my spin on it so much. So yeah, I mean, work hard, work smarter, not harder, right? So if there's an
Absolutely.
opportunity there to do that, I've used it as a couple of memes so far for seatbelt use. Just a picture, give me a photo of Michiganders wearing their seatbelt with the little state of Michigan in the corner, and looked at that and said, man, that's better than anything I could ever made. So and have used that. So yep, we're looking at it as we kind of go along and trying to stay within the rules of the state government, things like that. I think that's a tool that we all should take advantage.
Right, I agree. Mike, so in regards to critical incidents, things like OISs and things like that, does your agency handle a release of a critical incident video that, in a certain timeline that you would release to the public?
That is a deep topic of discussion. It is something that we've worked on now probably for about the last 5 years. I don't think that we will ever put a timeline on it, so to speak. We have released videos of critical incidents as it goes along. It kind of depends on the prosecutor as well that kind of gets that case. The Attorney General's office here in Michigan, she's not a fan of releasing videos prior to any type of court proceedings. And some of the prosecutors are that way too. So we have released some where it looks like we're going to see some civil unrest or kind of combat rumors, but we don't have a timeline set for that. It's something we've worked on for a long time. I think one of the very first IACP conferences I went to, Philadelphia, where, they did a presentation on their 72-hour timeline as far as putting out critical incident videos. And we've fought back and forth through that, and I think that's still a process that's in the stages of getting done.
You have a lot of you have to deal with a lot there. You have the Attorney General's office, you have the individual prosecutors, you have state law, and then the political end of it that comes into play all the time. Yeah, I could see that that would be kind of an interesting juggling act to figure out timeline. All right, so let's switch this up a little bit. Software. Do you guys at the Michigan State Police use any specialized software to manage your posts to social media, or is it native to the platform?
Native to the platform, one of the things that I saw when you had those apps that kind of posted stuff for you, sometimes you didn't remember that you had that scheduled down the road, and then you had a critical incident, and then you're talking about taking care of your dog during thunderstorms. At the same time, you have a critical incident going on. So that was always a fear for me anyways. So we don't use that. It's all generic to the time. And that's one of the good things about having the PIOs connected with their own account, is we're not sending it to somebody else or trying to get that formatted to go out at a certain scheduled time, that they're actually hitting it real time. So that works out real well for us. We do, and I don't know if we're going to go to this next part or not, as far as other applications goes, but we're playing with Nextdoor right now, is something that we've started to really start to look at as far as another application other than our X accounts to get that information out. It's been an
I
interesting.
have seen some really good success with Nextdoor, and the key with Nextdoor obviously is the neighborhoods that you're sending things. So it's really good when you have like burglaries that hit an area, or catalytic converter thefts, because you could really target a neighborhood in putting information out. That's one of the things that I really like about it. The negative side of it is the back and forth that people have on there sometimes can get really old, and it's like those the Facebook what's going on in my neighborhood or what's happening in my neighborhood kind of groups. They tend to get a little crazy. Mike, does the state police use any kind of posting software for critical incidents like Rave Alert or Nixle or any of those other ones to put out like a statewide alert?
So we are in charge of like the Amber Alert system, the Silver Alert. That all comes through our operations center up in Lansing. So we do use that. But as far as actual critical incidents, and that's one of the reasons, like you said, that we started looking at Nextdoor. Our mobile app, it's a work in progress, right? I mean, it's kind of the most people that go to the mobile app are the people that just like the state police, anyways, right? You're not getting like a whole gamut of folks, right? Where next door, I can hit everybody's phone with an alert, and our PIOs all have their own individual accounts that are for their particular counties. So when I put out an alert, it's only going to hit my areas or knock it down to those neighborhoods. So that's one of the reasons that we started really looking at next doors. We wanted to kind of localize that mission, which is a lot tougher for us as a state agency because a lot of times if it comes out of Lansing, everybody gets it. And if you want to make the public mad, give them an Amber Alert in an area that's not theirs in the state of Michigan at 2 a.m. And I'm called everything else that you can name that I can't say here on this podcast. So yes, that makes it
Yeah.
interesting.
Mike, what are your goals for your career?
You know, as I come to the end, I mean, and I got a year left. So, and I have to retire. I mean, we have a drop program, and I don't know if I want to get into the details about that, but basically, I retired in 2020, and you're allowed to stay a certain amount of time. And it helps the state as far as pension costs, and then I get to stay a little longer. But once you hit that 6 year point, you got to go, is how they say it. So I'd like to continue on where we're at. We're making some good progress as far as the section goes in our division. My next part is to train a successor. So that's probably going to be my last year is, trying to get somebody in place that um, has the same passion for this as I do. I mean, if there's one thing about being a PIO, it's not a stepping stone to something else or something. This is something you really have to enjoy and be willing to put those extra hours in and not worry about, oh, am I getting overtime and all that kind of stuff. So, and being the section commander, you're responsible for all those other PIOs too. So, not only can I say the wrong thing, it's my fault when they say the wrong thing. So, finding that right person to take my spot is probably my next final goal.
Absolutely. Mike, is there a question I should have asked? And if so, how would you have answered it?
So I think for me is what to do when you're a new PIO and you just don't know what the heck you're doing. And I think for me was I was very fortunate. We had a senior reporter that worked here in the Detroit area that also taught journalism at one of our local colleges. So I put my hat in my hand and I walked up to her and I said, "Excuse me, I am brand new at this and I have no earthly idea what I'm doing. Can you look at my interviews and tell me if I sound like an idiot or not?" Is kind of what I approached it, and she did. She didn't use any of the stuff we talked about. She kept it to herself, even on critical incidents, and really kind of got me going in that direction where I knew I was doing. And then the second part was networking. I see you have an IOA shirt on. I'm a member of that organization as well. PIO section. I mean, going out there and just talking, it doesn't matter what discipline that PIO is from, but just getting to meet those people and talk to them and say, hey, what would you do if this happened? Or, hey, I did this and I really screwed it up. Well, any ideas? I think that was, and then, I hit some FEMA courses. I was fortunate enough to go to the University of Tennessee to their master PIO course. And I would say, keep learning. I mean, no matter how long you've been doing this, there's somebody else that's doing it a little bit different way that might help you out. So I think that would be the question that I would say.
That's outstanding, Mike. I appreciate you bringing that up because, that was the same way with me when I came into this field. 18 years ago, almost 18 years ago, I was, I was a patrol supervisor and I worked patrol and they said, "Hey, we need to get the guy out of there. He's burnt out. Can you just do it?" And I was like, "Do what?" And they're like, "Be the PIO." And I'm like, "I guess." So I was kind of like you're going to be the guy and you get in there. And then all of a sudden I was like, I really, really enjoy doing it. And that's why this podcast started, was for a way when I retired from the field was to stay connected to it. And it was a way for me to learn from other PIOs as I continued my career in civilian life. So that was the goal. And that's kind of like you said, it's got to be something you want to do. You got to like it. Cause if you don't like it, you're going to say something wrong that's going to embarrass your agency or yourself, and then run into more problems from that.
Yeah, I think there's no better representation of these departments around the country than when you see their PIOs get out there in front of the camera or even behind the camera if they're, staffing somebody, if that's how your department is set up there and doing what they do, right? I mean, we see it all. We know all the inner workings that are happening behind us, and there's nothing I could have done in my career that represented the Michigan State Police more than this job right here. There just isn't. I mean, I went from narcotics to the PIO. I went from going to the grocery store and wondering if I arrested that person that was staring at me to now where people come up to me and say, "You're that guy on TV. You do a nice job." And I say, it's easy. I have a great department that I work for.
And that's such a
I
rewarding feeling too.
it is. Yep. I mean, and that's how people get to know. You know, I'm a state trooper, right? I'm Mr. Robotic. I and all this kind of stuff, and that's not, as you can tell, that's not me. So I think a lot of times that shows through the camera and when we're talking to the public, and it's not all media. We're going also, to community service events, and kind of opens that curtain a little bit where they're like, oh, there's that guy on TV, and they come up and talk to you, and next thing you know, they're spending time with the trooper that's standing next to me, and I just kind of fade back into the distance. So awesome
Outstanding.
response.
Absolutely outstanding. Mike, let's switch this up to do some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Texting or talking?
I used to be a talker, but now I'm a texter. I'm too busy to be talking all the time.
Movies or books?
I'm a movie person.
Coffee, tea, or energy drink?
A coffee.
Adult drink of choice?
Usually beer, but a little gin and tonic every while. Never really hurt anybody.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs by far.
What's your favorite go-to karaoke song?
Nobody wants to hear that, but I would probably go with "Lovin', Touchin', Squeezin' by Journey. Showing my age.
Nice. If you could have a superpower, what would it be?
I would like to be able to transport myself wherever I go. I hate driving or riding in a plane. I like to go to different places. So just being able to hit the teleporter would be awesome.
That'd be great. If you could instantly be an expert in one thing, what would it be?
Everybody's going to laugh at this, but it's Canva. I cannot, for the life of me, understand that program. Every PIO makes fun of me. Everybody in external and internal communications, my boss, Canva and I are not friends. And I would love to be able, before I retire, to actually say, yep, I understand.
Ask permission or beg for forgiveness?
I think everybody can tell from my personality, I constantly beg for forgiveness.
PIO way. What place would you most want to travel to?
I was very fortunate in the army. I got to a lot of places, but the place I never got to go was Italy. And I would love to go to Italy, see the Vatican, all that has.
Yeah, especially now that with the Pope and everything, and you get to see a little bit more of it. What a beautiful place that is. Just unbelievable. Like, what's a favorite way to relax after a long day?
I'm a camper. Well, I have a travel trailer, so I'm not a tent camper anymore. Camping, football, baseball, that kind of stuff. Sitting just on the deck and relaxing is kind of my hobbies. Hunting in the wintertime.
If you could choose to sit down and have coffee with any figure, living or dead, historical figure, who would it be?
Colin Powell, without a doubt.
Be a great conversation. Mike, final thoughts. What key points would you like our followers to take from your interview today?
It's going to be okay. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing that I tell everybody. One of the things that I talk about, I'm a big Marvel movie comic book person. Thor's my guy. He has a statement in one of the movies, I make great mistakes all the time and it always turns out okay. I think that's something to live by is, test the boundaries, go out there, do your job, represent your department. And you know what? Everything is going to be okay.
That's outstanding. Mike, as we wrap this up, do you have a piece of wisdom or a motto you live by?
And I think that's it. Making great mistakes and everything turns out okay. Try to live with that. And I think also you don't know everything. The day that you know everything, then it's time to go find a different career field. You should be learning every day. And,
I
30
agree.
years in the department, 11 years in the military, doing this since 2013. Every day somebody teaches me something new. And I think that's the goal to have is learn something new every day.
Mike, how can people best reach out to you if they want to connect or follow up on anything they heard today?
So our handle for me personally on my X account is MSP Metro DET. My email address is shawm4 at michigan.gov. Either one of those, or you can go to our Michigan State Police website, and there's a section in there that says Meet Our PIOs, and that's another spot where you can find me too.
Outstanding. Mike, I will add all those into the show notes so people will be able to find it if they want.
Thank you. I appreciate that for sure.
Mike, thank you for being on the show, man.
Thanks you. I really appreciate it. I'll put some out there on the X for you to promote your stuff too. So we'll get
Outstanding. Thank you.
right.